All right, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Naijafoottv, where we talk about Super Eagles and our players. I hope your day has started off well. So, back to talk about Ademola Lookman, one of our very own uh, forward player who obviously is doing very well for himself. I'm just so happy, having to wake up this morning and seeing what's popping everywhere. I'm sure you must have seen it, you must have felt it. If you didn't watch the match, there's no way that you haven't seen it. Whether you're scrolling on social media or you're just passing by and listening to friends talking about it. But it was such a big victory. Barcelona collecting 4-0 yesterday at the hands of Atletico Madrid and Ademola Lookman. You know, it's not something that we see every day. Barca losing by that goal margin, and this is actually a history setter. Because the last time Barcelona were beaten by that huge margin in first half, it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago, and not many clubs have been able to do that. I think it's just more or less four times, 5 times in Barca's history that we've seen that, club side beating them by this huge margin. And again, kudos goes to Ademola Lookman. That's not to say that he's the only one, but of course, if you see his performance last night, you would know that this man has just come to the right club. Scored a goal, uh, and then created an assist for Julian Alvarez, who had been experiencing goal drought for I think up to 12 games. But he finally teed one up for him. That was actually the fourth goal in the 45 plus minute. That's the small extra time in the first half. And can you imagine Barcelona collecting 4-0 in the first half alone? That was crazy. No one saw that, no one envisioned that. But hey, football, it is football. You expect the unexpected. But again, kudos to these guys. Ademola Lookman continues to prove haters wrong. The way he has just uh, taken taking off to a flying start with this Atletico Madrid side. I want to see the faces of some of these pundits and some of these critics who obviously criticized him when he joined Atletico Madrid. We talked about one on the channel, one popular uh, Ivory Coast pundit saying that Demola Lookman doesn't have ambition, that he went to a small club. A lot of people were questioning why should he go to a small club like Atleti. That was exactly what a matured popular pundit was saying. Was asking the question, why didn't he go to Barca? Why didn't he go to Real Madrid and all of that? And I mean, you just wonder how do people even say these things? But whether you like it or not, Atletico Madrid is one of the biggest teams in La Liga, and they're doing really well for themselves. I think if any team is to cause an offset, it has to be whether in the La Liga or in the Champions League. Atletico Madrid, anytime, any day, is a club that you can expect to do great things, to spring up surprises. And why not? They have such a great manager in Diego Simeone. Because yesterday he was just vibrating. He was he was running all over the touchline. Bringing out this energy. You can see the passion in the way that he tries to inspire his players from the touchline. And I was a little bit surprised because I thought this man was old. Like 10 years ago, he was doing the same thing. 15 years ago, he was doing the same thing. And now he's still continuing to do the same thing despite, the age and everything. But I mean, it just shows you the passion of the game. And one thing I love particularly was when Ademola Lookman scored his goal, the way that Diego Simeone celebrated, it was such a good sight to see. you know, uh, for that one. Lookman actually scored two goals, but unlucky for him, one was cancelled because VAR, uh, uh, sorry, the goal was given to Kobasi as an own goal, but that takes nothing away from him, and we cannot also take our minds off the fact that Ademola Lookman, aside from scoring goals and scoring a goal and creating an assist, was also a thorn in the flesh of Kondi. Was a thorn in the flesh of Kondi. You know, he really terrorized Kondi, and this is what Nigerians have come up with. These two pictures here, uh, you know, I think the biggest what's it called highlight of the night between these two players. Ademola Lookman constantly worrying Yus Konde, and Nigeria people, I trust them. They don't go edit the whole thing. You know, first picture is saying 14th of February, and then 9 months later, basically depicting that if tomorrow now Valentine now, so obviously if you chase any girl, this is the first picture here. That's how it looks like. You're chasing a lady, but she's running away, and then 9 months later, when she agrees, she's now the one chasing you with pregnancy. But again, I mean, you just love Nigerian fans. You love our people the way that they, you know, obviously uh, show the, you know, show their passion for the game, show their support for our fellow brother, you know, as he's doing well. But I mean, this result is really good for Atletico Madrid, and if you uh, look at what they've been doing right now in the Copa del Rey, they've been doing some absolutely magnificent thing. The last two games, uh, beating Real Betis 5-0, and then you know yesterday beating Barcelona 4 goals to 0. Although that was the first leg, they still have a return leg to play. But I mean, we cannot agree that it's almost done and dusted from the first leg because I don't think Barcelona will be able to come back too much from that game. You know, after having to concede this huge amount of goals. But for Atletico Madrid, they are going to want to try and be replicating this form in their league because obviously, if you look at um, if you look at the league table, you know you see that they are in the third position, miles away. You know, a lot of points away from Real Madrid and Barcelona. Barcelona are occupying first position with 58 points after 23 matches. Real Madrid after 23 matches they have uh, 57, and then you have Atletico Madrid after 23 matches 45 points. So they are they are lacking in terms of the league, which is the most important thing. And their last league game, you know, which which they played before this Barcelona game last night, it was actually against Real Betis. You know, in a week they played them twice, one in the Copa del Rey, one in 5-0, and then you know they played the next one, which they lost 1 goal to 0. So obviously they will need to be doing better in their league for them uh to really you know push on and try to oust Real Madrid and Barcelona. And for this young man, obviously, it was a night to forget for him. You know, heading into that match, a lot of people were actually hyping Lamine Yamal and Ademola Lookman. You know, people were saying it's a battle between Yamal and Lookman and all of that. But I always tell people, don't. I hate to see this kind of comparison. You know, I hate to see a certain youngster who's still coming, who's still, you know, grabbing the ropes, trying to get to the height of his career, and then you start to compare him with someone who has done, you know, a lot for the game, someone who's not that young, who's not his age mates, you know, and then you compare them together. I hate to see this kind of comparison. Yamaha should never be compared to Lukman in any sense. They are not even age mates. They are not age grade. They are not in the same generation. Lookman is 28, going to 29 or something of that nature, and has done quite a lot. We've seen him, play games, um, several years. The last the last 1 decade, done a lot. Won the Europa League. Done things in the Serie A and all of that. Done things with the national team. So you cannot be comparing a player like that to Yamal, who's obviously one of the most talented teenager, in football right now. I think he's just 18 years old, and would love to see Yamal play because he excites us with his abilities, with his dribbles, with his uh, God gift, God gifted talents, and we obviously love to see that. Whether you're a Barca fan or you're a Barca hater or whatever you are, you definitely love to see Yamal play. Sentiment apart, but all this comparison is something that is not really healthy. Not for Yamal, not for reasonable football fans. It doesn't make much sense. But last night was a was a disaster for Yamal. And some people have even started drawing the conclusion that if Rafinha is not present for the Barcelona team, that they find it very difficult to win games. That Yamal is a great player, but he is obviously not that player that can help them win, big matches. And that has shown in different, matches against Real Madrid. No Rafinha, they didn't win that game. Against what's it called? Against Chelsea, no Rafinha, they didn't win that game. Against Atleti, no Rafinha, they didn't win that. So the list goes on and on like that. But I mean, no, no, take nothing away from the man. He's still someone that can win you match anytime, any day, and is obviously developing. And I'm sure he's going to get better with time. And then for this man, Hansi Flick, um, I, I read his interview after the game, and he was giving all kinds of excuses, which is something that coaches usually do after they've failed, after they've been humiliated and been disgraced. So he came out as usual and said what I wasn't surprised that he said, talking about how, the goal that was cancelled due to an offside position from I think Kubasi, said that was not supposed to be, that he thought that that goal should have stood because, Kubasi was onside. And that's laughable because I mean we saw that very well. It even took VAR up to 8 minutes to examine that, even though it was very contentious. I mean, at the end of the day, Kubasi was still he was offside. That was why it was cancelled. But it's just Hansi Flick refusing to accept that he's been given a test of his own medicine because this man likes to beat people by high goal margin. Remember when he was at Bayern Munich, he was actually the last coach that beat Barcelona 4 goals to 0. Back in 2020, was a man that eliminated Barca, scoring four goals past them in the first half. And now that he's the coach of the Barcelona, he's now at the receiving end of such humiliation. And what he can do is to come out and complain to the media, you know. So I think he should just take the L, and then move on from there, and work on the things that he thought or he discovered that his team didn't do well, and then come back in the return leg and try to be better. That's what I think he should do instead of trying to shift the blame to someone else. But I mean, back to our main man, Ademola Lookman. So happy for him that he obviously is making a statement for 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 himself. He's obviously showing this quality. It's crazy, and I repeat, it's always crazy when I see people talk about Ademola, core world class players in Africa, and they leave out the names of Ademola Lookman. They leave out the names of Victor Osimhen. It's just crazy stuff. Sometimes I'm wondering, these people, are they real pundits? Do they even know what they're talking about, or they are just doing bad belly? Maybe they are doing okay because I'm a Ghanaian pundit. Then obviously, I cannot include a Nigerian star because the bad belly is there and all of that, or because I'm a Senegalese, or because I'm a South African. It doesn't make sense. If you want to analyze football, you have even though even though it's commentator, even though it's something that you can impute your own feeling, your own sentiment, you still have to be objective if you want people to take you seriously. If you want people to respect what you say. That's why I always love Thierry Henry's analysis. He has, he yes, he might have soft spot for Arsenal, maybe when he's analyzing Arsenal game in the Champions League, for CBS and all of that. He's someone that always tries to tell the truth, which is obviously what makes him one of the best pundits, at the CBS. But again, Lookman continues to shine, and I mean, we hope to see more from him uh, going forward into the future. They have a game on Sunday against Real Vallecano, and that game is going to be interesting to watch because obviously Atletico Madrid will be looking to get back to winning ways in their league, which is obviously like the most important thing for them right now.